Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to the Crack House Chronicles. I am Donnie, your host, and with me is a man who has seen enough dinosaur movies to be able to tell the real ones from the fake ones. It's Dale. What's happening, man?
Man, you're so crazy. I guess I am a Jurassic fart.
Yeah, old as Jurassic.
There
You
go.
bet Jurassic is. Been a couple weeks since we've been in the Crack House. I've had some personal things going on, and Dale's been doing some things, so we're back recording again, getting this crime fix going.
That's right. We got the band back together when we were ready to rock.
Taking a tour on the Crack House, that's for sure. Dale, what we got going on today? Is there anything you want to get into before we get started on this episode?
No, not really. I'm just glad to be back. We've had a few issues or each of them going on, and got all that settled out and ironed down and ready to go. And I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, sometimes life gets in the way, man.
I'm telling you.
Golly. Some things we put up with.
Better an alternative, I guess.
Yeah, that's true. All right, Dale, this episode this week is on a guy named Adolfo Bresciano.
Bresciano.
That is his born given name, but he's better known as Dino Bravo.
Dino Bravo, Italian-born Canadian wrestler. Actually
Yep.
born in Campobasso, Italy,
Campobasso.
on August 6th, 1948.
I've researched Dino quite a bit, and some of his early life, there's not much out there on him.
No.
I mean, there's not. And really the only thing that we could find was where it got into his wrestling career, how he got started and where he got started.
Right.
Dino began wrestling in 1970, taking his name Dino Bravo from a wrestler from the early 1960s who had teamed with Dominic DeNucci as the Bravo brothers, Dino and Dominic.
Right.
So I guess he took Dino's name and then their ring name Bravo,
Right.
and that's where he got his ring name from. He was trained by Gino Brito, and they often work in a tag team with his mentor billed as Brito's cousin.
Right. And a side note about DeNucci, he later on, years later, would become a superstar trainer, basically training Shane Douglas and the hardcore legend Mick Foley. Just in case you didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. You're the wrestling guru,
Wrestling dude.
the wrestling dude. All right, Bravo held the Jim Crockett Promotions version of the NWA World Tag Team Championship with Woods, winning the title from Gene and Ole Anderson.
Yeah, he was teamed up with Mr. Wrestling, Tim Woods, and they would take it from the Minnesota Wrecking Crew, Ole and Gene Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, now by the late 70s, Bravo had become big enough draw to get a singles push into Montreal territory. And we're talking Montreal, Canada.
Right.
In December of 78, he defeated Gene Kiniski in Toronto to win the new Canadian heavyweight title as recognized in that Montreal area.
That's right.
All right.
Other titles he would hold would include the WWF World Tag Team titles with his with his partner Dominic DeNucci, beating out Professor Toro Tanaka and Mr. Fuji. They would hold these titles for about 3 months before dropping them to the Yukon Lumberjacks with manager Lou Albano.
All right. Now, by the early 1980s, Bravo and King Tonga, later known as Haku, formed a tag team for a brief while, Dale,
Yep.
but never got much of a push.
No, and Haku is probably the baddest man in wrestling, bar none.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And Bravo was scheduled to headline a card against Hulk Hogan in 1986. But guess what, Dale? That match was canceled.
Yeah, it was going to be held in Montreal, where Dino would be the hometown hero.
Yeah, he was pretty popular there.
Very.
And they didn't want Hulk Hogan showing up there and getting booed out.
No, he would have been booed out of the building.
Yeah. Before we started all this, Hulk Hogan was hot back then.
Oh, yeah, very.
Yeah, and that wasn't going to happen.
No, Vince didn't want his boy getting booed out of the building, so they canceled that, and it really pissed off Bravo when he found out the reason his match was canceled.
Mm-hmm.
Enough to where he actually quit the WWF.
All right, Dale. After the match with Hogan was canceled, Bravo quit after finding out. He quit wrestling.
Right.
Yeah. He actually quit until 1985. And then Bravo returned to the WWF in late 1986 with a new look. He had beefed up, got more muscular, and began bleaching his hair, sort of a brownish blonde. Bravo returned to the singles competition after a few months and began a strongman gimmick. In his days of wrestling, mostly in Canada, Bravo is known more of a technical wrestler. But with his strongman gimmick and his technical side was pushed into the background and his style changed to using power, which was more of a brawling type move.
Exactly. Punches, kicks, bear hugs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. All right. At the 1988 Royal Rumble, Bravo, who was legitimately strong and said to be able to press more than 500 pounds, attempted to press what he claimed to be 715 pounds,
right,
which would have been a world record at the time. Now, the commentator and former bodybuilder, Jesse the Body Ventura, helped lift the bar at one point, but Bravo played the lift as a success and began billing himself as the world's strongest man.
Right.
Now, with this gimmick, Bravo feuded with Don Morocco, Kim Patera, Ron Garvin, and Jim Duggan.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a feud there.
Yeah, it was like basically all those were strong guys, especially Morocco and Kim Patera, who was actually the world's strongest man at one time.
Yeah.
Legit.
Now, we're going to emphasize right here, wrestling is all that Dino Bravo knew. Now, he didn't have much of an education. And as far as business sense or anything like that, he didn't have none.
No.
He was making money and
making tons of money.
Yeah, a lot of money.
But he was spending a lot of money.
Make big house, big cars, fancy cars, and that's what he had. I mean,
he was living the high life.
Oh yeah,
that was his gimmick. That's what he loved.
Yeah.
In the years after this, he just he hooked up with a couple people in some tag teams, and then bounced around some little singles things. But then he wouldn't really have a lot left to WWF, and they were going to not re-sign him when his contract came up. Rick Martel saying that when he heard this, he actually went to Pat Patterson and asked them to let him stay, and they could form their own tag team where he could do all the bumps and running around, and Bravo could do all his strongman stuff. But Patterson said that Vince McMahon just didn't have anything for him, and they weren't going to re-sign him. So after 1992, he was out of the WWF for good.
Wow. So when Dino Bravo got out, like we said earlier, he didn't have much education. He didn't have much to fall back on. Wrestling was his world.
Right.
And he had a relative by marriage, and his name was
Vic Catroni, Montreal crime boss.
Yeah, we talking mafia stuff here. Now Dino, he was used to living this lavish lifestyle,
spending money. Big
houses, big cars.
Well, he had a lot of money coming in, so a lot of money was going out. But then when no more money's coming in, then things are going to get tight quick.
Yep. So Dino got into the cigarette underworld.
Right.
Selling cigarettes.
His downfall was, or his lowest points, when he ended up having to borrow money from his mother. And that really hurt him. And so
that hurt his pride.
Right. And he always had this option to go to work for Catroni, but he didn't want to do the underworld stuff and try to stay legit. He knew how he was and how his demons were.
Yeah.
And he knew that once he went down that road, it'd be no coming back. So he didn't really want to do it. And then when he had to borrow his money off his mom, it's like he really didn't have any more choices.
That was pretty much his last resort to keep his lavish lifestyle. Is that right?
Yeah. He knew he could make some money. He had heard about the cigarette business, and so that's where he headed.
So in Canada, cigarettes are taxed pretty high. Is that correct?
Right. So it's kind of like New York, that same mafia gimmick there, where they're taxed so high. So he started just smuggling them, and then they could go around and then sell and make the big upsell charge themselves.
So what Dino was doing, he was selling cigarettes to the local natives, the Indians.
Right, and they were helping him smuggle in because they had the waterways, so it was an easy way for them to smuggle them in. And they were all big wrestling fans. So as soon as they thought that they could do business with Dino, they were just pretty much dealing with him only, and he had pretty much control of them.
Oh, they were excited to deal with him.
Yeah,
he was popular.
Yep, they loved the wrestling.
Yeah, so that made him, like a I don't know like a I don't know what the word is, but it's almost like he was a celebrity again.
Right.
Yeah, selling cigarettes to the Indians. I guess the cigarette deal wasn't big enough for him. He wasn't making enough money. I don't know, but he got approached to sell cocaine.
Yeah, I heard that the cocaine guys had seen how much money he was making and how well he was doing with the cigarette industry. So they approached him. Do they want to be cut in on this deal too? So they were like, well, you cut us in on this and we'll cut you in on the cocaine deals, because you know that cocaine is going to move a little faster and probably going to make a lot more money off of that.
Right.
So they wanted in to get with him because, you know, he had pretty much control of everything with the Indian deal. So, and that would be Native Americans, I assume.
Yeah. Now, Dino, everything was going good with his operation with cigarettes and the cocaine.
Right.
And he had a big shipment that was sitting in a warehouse.
Yeah, $400,000.
$400,000 worth of cocaine.
The cocaine sitting in a warehouse. Yep.
Man, back then that was a lot. It's a lot of money now, but back then that was a lot more money.
That's a shit ton of money. If you ask
Yeah,
me.
that's a lot of money. And that cocaine sat in that warehouse for 3 days.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't really know everything, all the details behind that, but that's everything I've read and I've heard, that it was sitting in there for 3 days waiting on somebody to come pick it up. And then finally, when the cocaine connection went to go get it, they pulled up and the place was surrounded by cops.
Yeah, somebody from the inside had information.
Yeah.
They were waiting on them.
So Dino was blaming them because they let it sit there for 3 days instead of getting it immediately, and they were blaming him. So it's just some bad stuff going on here. You know, one blaming the other, and I guess the mob's looking at it like you crossed us, so you know it's not good.
So what it come down to, this was on Dino.
Yeah, and you know Dino didn't have no $400,000.
No, I mean he didn't borrow money from his mom to keep his lifestyle going.
He had made some money, but I'm sure he was still spending as fast as he's making it.
Yeah. So yeah, all this was weighing on him. I mean, he was solely responsible for that $400,000.
Right.
Yeah. So what happened was, Dino couldn't pay this $400,000. He couldn't pay this $400,000 bill on the cocaine.
Right, and all this happened about a week before he was killed, actually.
Yeah. So what happened was, Dino's wife was taking their daughter to ballet class.
Right.
And he was at home. He was going to watch a hockey game on television. And during that time while they were gone, I've heard too that when she left, he was alone.
Right.
And sometime during that point, somebody came to the house. Apparently. Evidently somebody he knew.
Right.
Because of the way the murder happened.
Right.
But while they were gone, he was sitting down to watch a hockey game on TV, and Dale, he was ended up being shot 17 times. 17 times. Yeah. And you want to tell us the details about that 17 times?
Yeah, and this was on a Wednesday, March 10th of 1993. And like you said, he was apparently just watching the hockey game, and they're assuming that somebody was there because he was shot in the back of the head. He was shot 17 times, and depending on which source you listen to, some say 7 in the head, some say 10, but we're going to go with 7 because that seems to be the
most I've heard from resources was 7 times in the head.
Right. So, well, it was one podcast I listened to, they said 10, so I think they just got it backwards. But anyway, he was shot from behind, so they knew there was somebody else was there, but nothing was disturbed. There was no damage like a break-in. Had been snowing outside, so there was no tracks around the house. So that's where they get that they think it was someone he knew and someone was there. Maybe he excused himself to go to the restroom or whatever. But anyway, when they came back, they shot him 17 times, up to 7 times in the head, and some reports say they actually put a smiley face in the back of his head with the bullets. Yeah, and they knew that this was a surprise hit because he was sitting there watching TV. Right. He had the remote in his hand. And if he would have known that he had a gun pulled on him, he would have gripped that remote a little bit tighter and flexed down on it. Right. So it was a surprise to him. Yeah, they said if you get shot from behind like that, you don't know it's coming. It would remain loose. But if it was from the front and you gripped it, that your muscles would lock up and it would still be tight on it when they found you. But it was just loose in his hand. So whoever it was, I'm sure they didn't want to come at Dino from the front because, I mean, he was a big guy. He was 6'1", 265, and jacked to the gills. So he's a super strong guy. You just wouldn't want to come at him from the front. So that's why they're thinking it's somebody that he knew, and they were watching TV together, and the guy just got up, and then next thing you know, just filling full of holes.
Yeah. Yeah, you wouldn't want to come from Dino from the front because there was no sign of struggle or anything.
No, nothing. Nobody heard anything, so they said I think it was a 22 or 22 long, but he apparently had a silencer because 17 times and nobody heard a thing.
They had some pretty close neighbors too, I think.
Yeah, 17 times.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
All right. Now, like you said, there was no footprints in the snow. Nobody leaving or coming to the house.
Right.
Yeah, so it had to be somebody there that
Right.
Dino knew.
No forced entry, no anything. It's just like it just happened.
Yeah. Well, it cannot be known for sure, but what is certain is that Dino's wife found him later that evening when she returned home with her daughter.
Right. Luckily, he said the daughter was asleep and she was carrying her, so she didn't get to see the scene. But it was pretty graphic with blood all over on the ceilings and the walls. It was pretty bad.
Yeah, a lot of flesh everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And today, this murder is still unsolved.
Still unsolved.
They don't know anything about, the $400,000 was on Dino, like we said.
Right.
And his relative wife's uncle that was in the mafia. It's almost certain that it was a mafia hit. He couldn't pay that $400,000 back.
Right.
So,
somebody had to make an example.
Yeah.
Now, all of this is speculation because it's really hard to find anything on this. Even as far as the investigation, we haven't found nothing. And we've been searching to try to expand on this story because it's pretty interesting. And it's just basically he was shot and that's the end of the story.
Mm-hmm. But, I've had a lot of questions, and I threw some of these questions at you before we started recording. And, every murder case or missing persons case I've ever studied or listened to, it's always somebody they know.
Right.
That's why there was no struggle. Somebody was in the house that knew him that shot him. My one question is, how much life insurance did Dino Bravo have on him?
Right. You don't know.
Did he have it? Was his wife ever investigated for this?
Don't know that either, but that's a good question.
Yeah. It was her uncle
Right.
that was in the mafia. He was the leader. His nickname was the Egg. If you get a name like the Egg as a mafia leader, you better be pretty bad.
Yeah. That's an odd name. You can think of it to be a pretty big guy, but in pictures he didn't look like he was a big round guy or anything, so I don't know where the name come from, but if you're going to be called the Egg, there ain't nobody going to mess with you.
Yeah, we're going to post pictures of him, of the Egg, on our Facebook and all our social media accounts and stuff, so make sure everybody checks that out. But, I just wonder if his wife was ever investigated. If
you would think so.
Ever looked at taking a polygraph or anything. I haven't found anything on that.
No, we've searched a lot, both of us separately and together,
Mm-hmm.
trying to find more to this story, and it just pretty much stops there. And I don't know if it's because it's a Canadian thing,
Mm-hmm.
or
yeah, I don't know what happened to him. But I'd like to know if she was ever investigated.
right. I'd like to know a lot about the investigation.
Yeah, but you look at this and you look it up and read about it. There's nothing on it. There's
Nothing we can find. If you can find something, please let us know.
Yeah, if anybody out there knows anything about what happened to Dino Bravo, yeah, let us know.
It's pretty sad, actually.
Do you have any more thoughts on what could have happened to him as far as, we're almost 99% sure it was a mafia hit, but...
I mean, it would have to be. Even if somebody broke in his house, they're not going to shoot him 17 times and put a smiley face in the back of his head.
No, that's definitely a mafia trademark.
It's an example, and it's just, and that is also hearsay. I haven't seen any pictures or anything, so that's just another information we got from somewhere else. So I can't say for sure that he had a smiley face in his head, but that was one thing that we did hear.
Mm-hmm. But it is reported that he was shot 17 times.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah. So.
And 7 in the head.
Smiley face.
At least.
Wow. So yeah, did we miss anything on this case, you think?
No, I don't think so. If we did, I'm sure somebody will let us know.
Oh, absolutely. But yeah, we'll post pictures of all this on our social media accounts, Facebook, Instagram, everything. If anybody has any thoughts or comments on Dino Bravo and his mysterious murder, let us know. We would love to hear it.
Yeah, sure would. And we're really interested in the aftermath of this, but it's just almost impossible to find anything about it.
Mm-hmm. All right, Dale, before we close this episode out, do we have any shout-outs to give anybody this week?
Shout out to Meredith from Chesapeake, Virginia. Big fan. We had a message from this week, and we'd just like to shout out to her. I sent her out a few stickers and a magnet for her fridge, and hope she likes that, and appreciate you listening.
Absolutely. Tell everybody about us. Tell all your friends. Tell your neighbors and your cousins about us. We appreciate our fans for
and
sure.
Your cousin neighbors and your uncle aunts.
Yeah. All right, Dale. Anything else before we close out today?
No, I think that's a pretty good one. I'm glad to be back and get one under our belt and be ready to rock.
That's it. All right, guys. We want everyone to be safe, be careful, and always be aware of your surroundings.
Because the next episode could be about you.
This is the Crack House Chronicles.